Hattie and I am back with part 2 of the Easter Bunny's castle. So this of course is the interior for the build. I'm really excited to share this with you because I had a lot of fun doing it. I've had a lot of fun doing interiors recently and this is definitely one that I enjoyed. In fact, when I was almost finished, I felt like just destroying it all and building it again because I have brand new ideas all the way through. And that's something that's really rare for me. I mean, I just had lots and lots of fun. And also, I found that it was a very individual house to sort of fill and it was just entertaining for me. I don't often get like that with my interiors, but I think for strange builds, I think when I'm doing something completely out of the ordinary that I really haven't tried before, that's when things start to get a little bit interesting. So yeah, I did. And I was at this point decorating only the hallway. Sometimes with my bigger builds, I decide to make sure that I do one room at a time because it's sometimes easier for me to make sure that I know exactly what I'm doing and it means that I have less mistakes. I did correct the glass of roses that is on the table there. I put them being wonky just by mistake. It's sometimes really difficult when I'm enlarging things to know when things look odd, and I didn't realise that maybe until I went back to it a little bit later on. I was also putting in the overhang because I know that a lot of people were requesting that I did a video and left the overhang part in. I have been getting a lot of questions recently as to what custom content I use as well, which has been, not gonna lie, a little bit puzzling because I don't use any custom content, but I think what might be sort of puzzling some people is the fact that I do use lots of stuff packs, game packs and expansion packs, which is something that I have been getting requests not to use as well. I get quite a few messages saying stop using this, stop using that. And that's something that I don't want to do because I don't want to restrict my build for the people that do have those things. But also I do know that I need to sort of balance the builds out and make sure that I'm doing builds that are base game, that are only including get together, only including get to work, things like that. And I will do that. So that's something that I'm definitely going to do in the future, and I'd love to know if you do have any ideas of things that you do want to see at a future date. If you do like this build, then please let me know if you do, because that will really give me some guidance of what you will want to see, and I will build whatever you want to see. So yeah, this is the hallway, and I think that at this point as well, I was trying to decide what club banners I would have being in the build. I really like the idea of whoever lives in this home to maybe be in the Rainbow Club or the Paragons. I was thinking that they were just really pretty colours for the build, so I did put banners of those throughout. And this could also be a secret lair for the clubs. I'm not sure, but that would be a really amazing idea. And if you do have a backstory for this home, I'd love to hear it. I actually have an amazing simmer that's been commenting on a lot of my builds recently and letting me know the sort of backstory of the build that they would imagine the home to have, and I absolutely adore that. So if you do, I'd love to hear it and I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. But what I was doing at this point is I was having some major expansions. So I was expanding all the rooms and I was making sure that everything flowed really well together. I wanted a little hallway just around the back there, so this was going to be the lounge that I was just putting some lights in. And yeah, I thought a little hallway there to separate the rooms and make sure the kitchen was humongous would be a really good idea. So that's what I did there, and I think that that went really well being like that. I also think that from a diverse perspective, it's sometimes really nice to have more open mansions like this instead of just having really fiddly homes that the Sims can get lost in really easily. Some of my very old creations, maybe my Tudor homes, have very small rooms inside, and this can be good, but it also can be bad because it can just mean there are so many rooms there. And from a mansion point of view, I think for this home it's actually very playable because the Sims can move around really easily and it doesn't look too claustrophobic or cramped, and I really like the idea of playing in this home. In fact, I might do a miniature let's play or something. I haven't really decided yet, but I do honestly feel so incredibly attached to this home. It's very rare that that happens with my houses, but when I do, I just feel the need to use them. So yeah, I might do. I will see what happens. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking about it. And if you do have any ideas of what you want to see, then I'd love to know as well, because I do really value each and every suggestion, and I do try to follow as many as I possibly can for future videos. So what I was also doing is I was just decorating the rest of the rooms. I found this amazing Easter wallpaper which looked absolutely gorgeous, and I was honestly feeling like if I ever had a family of my own, if I ever had children, I would want the children's room plastered in that, because that's absolutely gorgeous. And I think that if I'm ever doing a family home in the future, then that would just be a really cute wallpaper to use, so I definitely want to recreate that at some point in the rest of my builds. I did try to take a lot of inspiration from different places, different movies that I've watched, and one of the movies that I watched a while ago, which is just stuck in my head, and it's actually one of my favourite movies, believe it or not, but it's actually Wreck-It Ralph. I absolutely love that movie, and it's so happy, so sad, and just everything in between that. I absolutely love it to bits. But yeah, I think Candyland is in that, but I'm not sure what the world itself is called. I've watched it so many times and I just can't even think of what it's called. But yeah, so I did take a lot of inspiration from that world as well. And I think that at some point I do want to create maybe another ice cream mansion. I don't know. Something that would look like it was covered in candy instead of Easter eggs. I just think that would be a really interesting idea. So yeah, I definitely want to try different things out in the future, and I think that that would be a really interesting idea. And maybe for the interior of that build, whether it's a castle, a mansion, a palace, I'm not sure what I'll call it. But for the interior, I want it to be very food based. So instead of having lots of Easter eggs, lots of bunnies about, it would have lots of food around it, but I'm not sure. But yeah, so anyway, what I was doing is I was filling up the last bits of the hallway. I kept going back to it because I didn't want it to look too plain, too empty or anything. And I just really don't like when there's a blank wall in a house and there's just nothing on there, even if it's just a little picture or maybe a vase of flowers next to it. Is it vase or vase? I'm not sure, but either way, I hate that. I hate when there's nothing there. So I did try to go back, and if I missed a place, then I would just fill it up with something. I put a little mirror just here in the corridor, and my reasoning for that was because sometimes this can give a really good effect to smaller places. If you want there to look like there's a little bit more room there, then a mirror is sometimes a really good thing to put there. And I noticed that a lot of shops do that as well, or at least they tend to do that. So for instance, if you go into a really small shop, it will often be plastered with mirrors on the wall to make it look like the shop is actually a little bit larger than it actually is. In here was the study, and for the study what I did was I put a really unusual plant. I did the BB show hidden objects sheet, and that's what I did there, and that was to basically show you exactly what is there if you do use that cheat. And that's when I started putting cow plants in. I thought about putting a really unusual plant here, and I did actually keep it. And if you do download this house and you did want that plant there, then I think it would be a really lovely feature for the home to have. And it's something that looks really, really different. So I would imagine in a couple of days that will grow and hopefully give a good effect to this study. But sometimes plants take a little bit longer to grow, and I know that when I put a cow plant into Hogwarts, it took a couple of days to grow to full size. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of waiting, but I think that it will look really lovely when it is fully grown, and it will give a very nice feature to that overall place that is just round by the study there. What I was also doing is I was putting in a rug. I couldn't decide which one to go for. I think I went with blue in the end, and I did put some tree trunks in for seats instead of actually having just ordinary seats. That was because I did want to keep with the whole spring look, and I think that tree trunks are just the perfect image for that. I love that effect, so that's what I did. This in here was the dining room. So for the dining room, I wanted to keep with the Easter egg features on the table here. I did use the white and purple Easter egg quite a lot. So the purple and white polka dot one, that was repeated throughout the build itself quite a lot. And I think that's probably because it is my favourite Easter egg. I just love the colouring of it, and I don't know, I just really like it. So I use that a lot throughout the build. And if you do have your own favourite Easter egg, then I would love to know in the comments below, because they are all really different from one another. But yeah, so anyway, I was filling up the room, and what I was doing is I was putting in some pillars because I wanted to have some insects or frogs there. I just wasn't sure which ones I wanted. I think I went with butterflies in the end, strangely, but yeah, I did. And it's a shame that we can't have pets with The Sims 4 yet. I would love pets with The Sims 4 if we did have it. And I think what I would have done, if we did have the opportunity to do it, I would have had bunnies running throughout the build, and that would have looked really good. I would love bunnies in The Sims 4, and that would be something that I am definitely wishing for. Of course, I would love to know in the comments below if you would like pets in The Sims 4, because I know that a lot of people do have different opinions. It's the same with toddlers. Some people really want toddlers, some people really don't. Some people want pets, some people don't. But yeah, I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. What expansion do you want to see next? This is when I was just finishing off the room with putting in lots of curtains, and I also wanted a seating place in here. So that's what I did there. I was also putting in some flowers because I thought flowers look really pretty in this room, and I thought being a spring room, that's definitely something that I didn't want to forget. This was a music place, so this is where the family would probably sit down, play some music, play some piano, or go on the guitars that look like cats, I think. But yeah, that's what I did in there. This was the first bathroom that I did, so the downstairs only has one bathroom, which is really, really strange for my builds. In fact, quite a lot of the time, I have lots and lots of bathrooms in my builds because it's really important for the Sims to use them, especially as it's the one thing that they do tend to need a lot. So I don't know, I just didn't put in as many bathrooms as I would usually do, but I think it turned out quite nicely in here, and I think with it being quite pink and bright, it looked really pretty, so I was definitely happy with how that room turned out. The room that I was really, really stuck on was this room because I wanted it to be a lounge, but I thought, well, I've already got a seating area at the front of the build, so it's got to be a little bit different. I did put in a television, which is a little bit odd for this home to have. I know that, but I just think for needs wise, it's just so much easier for it to have a television just to get the Sims needs up if you want to use it from a practical point of view. That's what I did there. I know that that will have a lot of mixed opinions though. I do get a lot of mixed opinions on my videos sometimes, and it does tend to be the interiors rather than the exteriors. I think the general feeling is the exteriors are the parts that people really enjoy and like, but the interiors, sometimes if I do something wrong, or sometimes if someone feels like I did something wrong, then it does need to be highlighted, and I do often get comments saying, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that, or that looks really silly. So yeah, I think the interiors are something that some people do disagree on time to time, but that does tend to be the general feeling. So apologies if there is anything that you don't like in this build, because you can change it if you do want to download it. But yeah, what I was doing is I was putting some eggs just by the mirrors there. I thought that it would look really good if I just put as many eggs in as possible. I did fill up the tables here with some as well, and I did want a fountain here. I just love that fountain. I think it's a fountain, or is it a mill? I'm not sure, but either way, it's a wishing well. It's a wishing well. I just remember the word for it. Yes, it's a wishing well. And that is a completely different part of the lounge altogether. In fact, I wasn't going to put that in, and I couldn't decide what I wanted there. And in the end, what I did do is I made it an outside bit, so it does look like it's part of the outside. And by doing that, what I did was I changed the wallpapers, and I put some trees in, and I also changed the flooring to that green sort of look, and it did match the kitchen. Yeah, I really like it though. I think it's a very interesting part of the build, and it does make it look very mysterious. The teddy bears were supposed to be surrounding this area to make it look as if it was a teddy bear picnic. But then I didn't put in a picnic basket, and I also didn't put in a rug there. So apologies for that, but I just didn't want to make that area unusable, and it would be if I put that stuff in front of them. So that's why I left it just like that. This was when I was adding some more insects and just various items to the lounge. And I think it did look quite nice for there to be gardening furniture there. I don't often put gardening furniture in my builds, but especially as this is a very outdoor house, I thought it would look really good with that there, so that's why I left that in. This was a cow plant here, so the cow plant isn't grown yet, or it hasn't grown yet rather. But yeah, so that will take a couple of days, as will the plant in the study. But I think when this is grown, it will look really lovely, and I didn't want to fast forward time, because I think that if you do get this home and if you do decide to download it, it will be something that will be, I think, a progression thing. But I love that idea, and I know that that is something that a lot of people do like as well. The fact that you can see the cow plant actually growing, as opposed to just getting the house with a grown cow plant in there, and it could be its own storyline in itself. But I did finish off the room just by putting in some curtains and just some various items on the walls. Then I moved on to the kitchen. So the kitchen was, again, a very green room. I actually changed the flooring of it. I tried to use the roofing flooring on the floor, if that makes any sense to anybody. Yeah, that's what I did to begin with, and then I didn't like it because of the stripe pattern. But you can do that, and if you are ever struggling with floorings and you don't know what to put there, then you can always use the roofing, which is really odd. But yeah, it could potentially work as well for some builds. This was when I was decorating the kitchen though. I was putting the cabinets in, things like that. I was also deciding what I would have for decorations in here. So I did just overuse the trees. I thought the trees looked really good, and it's something that does look very childish as well. But I love that idea, and that's what I did throughout this build. I think that other parts of my inspiration did come from a program that I watched a really, really long time ago. It was on English TV, and sometimes English television can be a little bit strange. But yeah, so I watched this program, and it was with, I think, children, And what the children did is they changed their own house to look a certain way when the parents were out. If anybody knows the name of that program, then please let me know because I've forgotten it and I really want to watch that program again. But yeah, so I was watching that and it was a really long time ago. This was years ago, and the program itself was a really strange thing to watch. But it was very interesting to see the child's mindset and what they wanted to turn the house into. And I watched the program and it had 2 girls in it. And both girls decided that they wanted their whole house to look like a jungle of some sort. And they had vines hanging from the ceiling and they had grass on the floors. So I think a lot of that did come from that sort of idea. And I really loved watching that program. But please let me know if you do know the name of it, or if you do know a program which is slightly similar to what I've described. I love hearing your suggestions as to what I should watch, because I do get a lot of comments saying, oh, I think you'll really enjoy this series. And I absolutely love that, because sometimes I watch things which have been recommended to me and I really do end up enjoying them. So yeah, I'd love to know. And if you do want me to do a build from a certain series, something like that, then I am really interested in doing that as well. But this was how the kitchen pretty much finished off. So I did add little bits and bobs of pink to the room because I wanted it to be a bit brighter in there. This was the upstairs. So what happened was I did pause it for quite a while and I accidentally deleted the part where I decorated the walls, things like that. But anyway, this is how the upstairs looks, so apologies for leaving that out. I don't think there's anything too different from the downstairs. In fact, all the floors are exactly the same. And also the wallpaperings, I think, are the same as well. The only ones that I don't think are the same are those little ghosts that are from the Spooky Stuff pack. They are the wallpapers for that. They looked very cute. They looked, I don't know what they look like. They just look really cute. They look like little jelly blobs or something. So I definitely wanted to put those in, and I did use them for the bathrooms and for the party room, I think. So hopefully you'll see that in a little bit. This is when I was just putting in some bunnies for the corridor because I definitely wanted to put some bunnies around. I also did want to put lots and lots of children's activities throughout the build. So there's lots of dolls' houses and things for children to enjoy, because this could be a perfect place for children to live. In fact, it could only be children that live here. I have no idea. That would be an amazing idea though. And I wonder what a children's house would be like. In fact, if there was a house where, let's say, 10 children lived together, they had unlimited supplies of money and they could decorate it however they wanted, I wonder how it would look. I have no idea. Probably something like this, I would imagine. But yeah, so I was thinking a lot about that and I was having a lot of fun putting in some seats around, because I do like putting seats in the corridors, especially as it does give an accurate look to it. And when I have been in mansions before, in fact, one of my dad's old work colleagues had a beautiful house and I used to visit that quite a lot, but they had lots of chairs in their hallways. So if I ever get asked as to why I do something, it's probably because I've seen it done before, and that's probably the reason for it. And that is exactly the reason for putting so many chairs in places like houses, because that's just what I've experienced myself. If there's something that you've experienced in a particular house, whether it's lots of flowers in the house or, I don't know, something in a certain way, then let me know, because I love to hear about different interiors for houses. In fact, my ex-employer that I used to work for when I was a nanny, they had their stove in the middle of the kitchen, and I do get a lot of questions as to why I sometimes do that for my mansions. But yeah, that's the reason why, because they had their stove there, and sometimes I like to do that for my kitchens, but I didn't actually do it for this kitchen, so yeah, that was strange. But anyway, this was the outside balcony area. So the balcony areas were actually bigger than the garden itself, but I did change the garden slightly, and that's because I didn't like how it finished off in the last part. I think because I have been coming down with an illness. That's probably why sometimes my exteriors or interiors can be a little bit off. I do have reasons for that, which I won't explain on this video because I don't want to go into too much. But yeah, so I have been feeling really unwell recently. And I think that's probably sometimes the reason why, if there's anything that does look really odd or off, or I've enlarged something too much, or something's crooked, that is probably the reason. That was that room finished off, that was the party room. And for the bedrooms, what I decided to do was I decided to split the egg, which is very unusual, but I did. I enlarged the egg and I split it through the walls, and I loved that idea. So if you do have an Easter house yourself, I would love to know if you do use this, because I just think it's such a cute idea. And the idea is that it just sort of joins the rooms together, even though the rooms are completely separate. I don't know, I just thought they looked really good. And if you did want a family in here, this would be perfect for the mum and dad's room. And maybe the babies would be in the other room that was joined up with this one. or if you did want this house being strictly for children, which I do think can happen. If you did kill off a parent, I don't see why not. I have no idea though. That's pretty morbid, but yeah, you could do it, I think, anyway, but I'm not sure. But yeah, this could be the main children's bedroom, I guess. Or you could use mods. There's probably a mod for it somewhere. I don't know. There's lots of mods about. Lots and lots of mods. In fact, more mods than game packs, stuff packs, expansion packs, strangely. But anyway, this is when I finished off this room. I put in lots of rigs to finish off. And also, I forgot about the balcony area. Being completely honest, I did forget. So this is supposed to be an area that would be used maybe for meditation, things like that. And I didn't do too much in here because I left it to the imagination, which would mean that you can decorate it if you want to. And yeah, that's how I finished it off. This room was also very basic, so I just put in a little rug here. And I think to finish it, I put in potentially some bookcases. Yeah, so the same as the other room does have. And maybe some bunnies as well would look really pretty. I wasn't sure whether that patched bunny was with the new update, and that's something that you need to do to get with the eggs. I have no idea though. I'm actually really bad at doing stuff like that. I did actually collect all the eggs, but I can't remember getting the gift for it. I don't even know if I have got that bunny. I have no clue whatsoever. I don't even know if everybody gets it. Does everyone get it? Please let me know in the comments below. But anyway, this was the bathroom. The bathroom was, again, very small, just a small room just to fill up the area. I didn't want to take up a lot of space with it, so I didn't end up doing too many details in here, and I was pretty happy with how it looked in the end anyway. So that's how it looked, and this room in here was another children's bedroom. I think this bed colour has got to be one of my favourite bed colours. I love it. It's like a turquoisey blue colour, but it's so incredibly pretty. I just think it's really pretty, and in fact, if I was to decorate my room from scratch, I would probably have it in that colour. At the moment, my bedroom is in a creamy brown sort of colour, and that's just because I didn't have a choice really. I had to go with whatever bedding we could find in Basel, where we lived in Switzerland, and then when we moved, we just took everything with us. So I think that if I did do up my room again, I'd love it in that colour because it's just so bright and refreshing and just lovely. But yeah, so I really liked it, and that is how the children's bedroom finished off. This in here could potentially be another main bedroom if you wanted it to be. I went with the odd chairs because I love the idea of having the odd chairs, and especially after having the dining room downstairs and how the dining room finished off, I really liked it. I remembered it a lot whilst doing this, and I thought I'll just try and include it as much as possible throughout. This room was really just filling everything up with eggs again, so this could also be a main bedroom depending on what you want it for. I did find that really, really lovely tapestry, so I was definitely happy to find that. And this room was really just filled up with anything that I could think of. I did a lot of decorations in the other main bedroom, so you could really change this room as to however you'd want it to be. It could also be an upstairs garden because this could be a very topsy-turvy home, and it could have a lot more details in if you wanted it to have. This was just a practical bedroom though, so this would just be another grand bedroom just for another guest, or maybe someone that lived here, I don't know. And I think in the end what I was doing is I was just putting in some stars. I really love those starlights. They're probably my favourite ones. And I think for this build, it just brightened it up a lot. But that is the end of the build, so I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope to see your future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you all soon.